Hey everybody, welcome to the Heavy Debriefings podcast, episode 13, which might be our most explosive episode yet.
Ooh,
I, of course, am Josh Runquist, along with...
the Metal Theory.
And before we even get into anything, as we were setting everything up, my speakers decided to explode.
Yes.
For anyone that was not aware, I was using a Polk Signa S2 soundbar with subwoofer for my computer setup because I like hearing the bass, I like having the full sound of a soundbar.
Yes.
Then, all of a sudden, it decided to stop working yesterday, and today, once I started to try to work it, for some reason, it got set at 100, and it stopped working completely. You were in a different room, and you heard it, and I could just hear you snickering as it was happening.
Yes, I was.
And then you sent me that gif of Bart getting his ears blown away.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Even though that's technically just a hairdryer that was doing that to him, but I understand.
Exactly.
So I am back to using my Edifier speakers, which is probably for the best because now I have more leg room.
Yes.
The subwoofer's out of the way. And with the way that I tweak things and using the amazing free software FX Sound, everything sounds crystal clear and sounds awesome. Especially for speakers that cost us like 40 to 60 bucks. Mm-hmm. I couldn't ask for more, especially in that price range.
Exactly.
And that'll definitely be fun when we get into the 3 random songs in our musical roulette in a bit.
Yes.
But, if you haven't guessed, our anxiety is a little high right now. Mine from things potentially not working, your anxiety from things potentially not working, and over the past couple weeks, to be honest, we've both been going through our own personal versions of hell.
Yeah.
And in lieu of not really having any news...
Yeah, nothing really this week.
Yeah, I wanted to just kind of do a mental health check-in for us.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of us are going to go into detail about the problems that we're going through right now. Mm-hmm. Like, potential causation of things and the problematic things, but just how we're doing mentally. And we're going to start it off with you.
Yeah.
Like, over the last couple weeks and where you are now, how are you doing?
Oh, gosh, I feel like I'm in therapy now. But no, and just to backtrack, like, the reason why we want to talk about stuff like this is because we care about mental health. And, we know there's people out there probably who are struggling too. So sometimes just putting our little stories out there too can help people feel not so alone and like they're not the only ones struggling. But yeah, I've had a couple weeks. I mean, well, it's been more than a couple weeks with some stuff, but this week in particular, I kind of kicked off the week with an interaction. We'll just say that really kind of made me feel as low as I could be. And that just, it was a hard one to get over. And then that was followed the next day by some news that I just was not happy to hear about some possible upcoming changes of sort. And again, we're not going to get into details, but like things that could shift my life around a bit and stuff. And, none of it was end of the world stuff. It's very, very first world problems. But sometimes stuff like that can really just shake you. And especially if you're dealing with mental health, it can just hit you in the wrong place.
And not to mention, everyone handles things differently. So
Absolutely.
Even when you say first world problems,
Yeah.
like, that kind of demeans what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really fair.
Right. And I see where you're coming from, but I also know some people would make those comparisons and stuff. And I want to acknowledge the fact that I know there are people who have it so much worse than me. But like you said, everybody deals with things differently. And, what might be something that somebody else just rolls off their shoulders, like it can really ruin somebody else's day, if not worse. And so these are things that really just kind of hit me in a not good time and a not good way. And, that was just a bunch of other little things that added up on top. And it's been a rough week.
Yeah, and I've been going through some of that work-wise, with a lot of schedule changes, things not happening, some things getting canceled, some things getting moved around in time. I think I had 7 interviews planned for the past week, and now it's going to be 5, if you count the one that just got announced for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be fun, waking up super early.
Yes.
And again, yeah, like you do say, it's not an end of the world problem, but
Right.
the pain is still there. The
Yeah.
pain can still hurt you, and
sure.
I just don't want anyone to feel like it's rich people problems or
Right.
anything like that,
Yeah.
because we're not rich.
No.
But you know,
No.
it's just everyone handles things differently. And of course,
Absolutely.
anyone who knows me and knows, especially about the mental health struggles that I've gone through over the past year.
Yeah.
You've been really going through some stuff and
Yeah.
tackling a lot of, not all the demons, but a good amount of demons.
Yeah.
And one of mine kind of came back last week.
Yeah.
Although it is a net positive.
Yes.
As one of my nieces reached out to me. She checked out my latest episode of Something Gives, which was something I wasn't planning on making. But I felt like after 4 years, I felt like I needed to do some kind of update. And she reached out to me and checked it out and wanted to check in on me to make sure that I'm okay. Which is not something I would ever get from anyone else in my family. Anyone else in my family would be very discouraging of me, say some very negative connotations towards me, and a lot of other things. But me and her had a very good back and forth texting, and there's the potential that we might see each other at some point. Apparently, she comes back to Minnesota every few months, and we might see each other,
Yeah.
see what happens there. But
Yeah.
she's living a really good life out of state now with her partner, and they're really making a good life for each other now.
That's
and
awesome.
It's so great to see. And you know, I've learned some things about like what's going on with my mom right now. I've learned a little bit more about my sister, my ex-brother-in-law, and one of my other nieces and other stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of things started to creep in during that. And then, of course, seeing all the struggles that you've been going through as well, too. And I know
Yeah.
how much it hurts you. And as much as it's not cool to say on the internet, we are both empaths. We both really,
For sure.
truly care about each other. And when anyone comes to us with their pain, all we want to do is help them feel better.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we're both struggling like this and we both don't know what to do, it hurts us even more.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I will say first, I'm just so happy you're able to have that conversation, and I hope that continues because I really enjoy that. On my end, like another thing on my end, it's been a year now. It's creeping up on a year, anyways, since I first actually went to seek help for my mental health, which was a very hard time last year. So having that kind of be around this time too, it's just kind of putting everything in perspective. And like, I do feel like I'm in a better place than I was last year, but, you know, the struggles continue. So,
Have you thought any more about what you want to do with that?
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking, but nothing I'm wanting to air right now. So,
Oh no, I wasn't implying that,
yeah,
but
no,
you know,
no.
just
Yep.
yeah, like even with me, like I'm still currently waiting about 3 months now for a potential to get in to see EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that's even going to be possible. There was no timeline
Yeah.
for it, and I took a higher dose of medication on Lexapro, which has made me severely tired.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get used to it, see what I can do to counteract that, or what could happen in the future. But
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that we're at least recognizing where we need help, and we're at
Exactly.
least trying.
Exactly.
And you know, that's the thing a lot of people forget is like it's not really if you set your mind to it, it'll get better, because
Yeah.
there's so many things in the world that could prevent things from happening. But the important thing is trying.
Yeah.
Not just giving up, like doing what you can to try to get better.
Exactly.
As speaking from someone who's tried or stopped trying so many times, and it's led to the darkest moments of my life, I never want to go back to that.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing from people that things can get better as long as I keep trying, so
Yeah.
that's what I want to try now.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I'm somebody who I would say on and off, lightly, sometimes heavily struggled with mental health throughout my entire life. And I always put off seeking any kind of help with it because I was scared. I was scared to like deal with anything. I was scared to find a doctor, to find a therapist. I was scared of what they'd say. I was scared of any costs that come with it. I was scared of everything around it. And again, even though I'm definitely still struggling with stuff and I definitely have steps I need to take in addition to what I've done already, I am in a better place than I was, and you can be too. Anybody out there can be. It's just keep taking one step at a time.
Yeah, and I've noticed that with you. Outside of this week, which has been very hard for us.
Yeah.
I I am so happy to see the improvement that you've been having. I mean, of course, there's always going to be things like we need to improve in ourselves and what we do and everything. But seeing where you were around this time last year compared to where you are now, I'm very proud of the steps that you've made.
Thank you, and I'm very proud of your steps too.
And I just hope, like, hearing us, maybe it might help you in some way, because it's just like no one gets it more than someone that's going through it. So if you're
Exactly.
going through some hard stuff right now, it's like talk to somebody, someone that you can trust. Go seek therapy, seek medication. You don't have to do all of these things.
No.
But just like looking into all of these things and seeing what could potentially work for you, something that you would want to try.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go from just like trying a new hobby to getting actual medical help to so many different things that can happen. Just don't give up.
Exactly.
All right, so after our explosive incident before the show started and us spilling our guts out, now it's time to get our real thoughts out there. Our real true thoughts.
Yes.
As we talk about 3 random songs in some musical roulette.
All right.
Are you ready for this?
The question is, are you?
I never am, but that's what makes the adventure so exciting. We got back very quickly from that one. In fact, we let the whole song slide after
We did.
the whole minute and 2 seconds that goes into it. Iron Reagan, the side project of several members of Municipal Waste, Darkest Hour, and other bands, with the very Halloween horror-esque song Eyeball Gore.
Right.
And the YouTube video, which of course has all of the great horror eyeball scenes that makes most people squeamish. I'm not sure how they got away with making that video, but regardless. What's your thoughts on the crossover thrash that you just heard?
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I appreciate the horror aesthetic. I know they tend to be a little political, and I appreciate that as well. I mean, they have a hint of punk about them, which I enjoy that. But I don't necessarily love the vocals too much. They're a little jarring for me, and it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
That is completely fair. When I listen to Iron Reagan, I listen to it more for like the lyrics and the musical aspects of it. So then again, I am very, very tolerant of different vocal styles.
You are.
So I guess it's never really bothered me.
Yeah, I'm more of a vocal snob.
And I know I've shown you the video before, like years ago, and it's hard to watch, even if it's just a minute. But Halloween's getting closer and closer. Why not a little eyeball gore?
Exactly.
Next up, we got Paradise Lost, in a song that's almost feels like a precursor to Host, which came out this year. I mean, it's a very dancey, gothic kind of feel.
Yeah.
Still very much in that Paradise Lost feel, and a little doomy as well. Of course, the song Ghosts, off the album Obsidian.
Yes.
Now, this was the album that actually got you into Paradise Lost.
Yes.
So what do you think of this particular song?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different than some other, like, eras, shall we say. They're a very diverse band for sure. But I love it. I'm coming around to a lot of their different eras that I wasn't at first and stuff. And this album is probably my second favorite of their albums now, now that I've explored their other albums as well. But I love this album. I love this song. I love Nick Holmes. Yeah.
Hearing about all the guys that you love. But yes, Nick Holmes.
Come on, you love him too.
I didn't say I didn't.
Exactly.
But Nick Holmes and Gregor McIntosh are Paradise Lost, and they have just had such a diverse lineup and album styles over the years. Death doom, alternative rock, industrial, heavy metal. I mean, they pretty much do everything now, and especially on Obsidian, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. It's a good starter album.
Absolutely.
And it's actually great that you started off with this one for that reason. And of course, it's no 1 second, but what can be.
That is true.
For anyone who doesn't know, that is the Metal Fairy's favorite.
Yes.
But I really dig what they're doing right now. I dig that Host is a band now.
Absolutely.
And that makes me very curious to see where Paradise Lost is going to be going from here on out. It's because that was kind of their sound for quite a bit of time. So what'll happen next?
Exactly.
And finally, a little already foreshadow into what we're going to be talking about in the next segment,
Yes.
I decided to put on the Misfits with one of their better known songs, and one of the only Misfits songs that hasn't been covered by Metallica, Hybrid Moments.
Yes.
I, of course, know this best from Jackass. But, Len, first of all, what is your thoughts on the Misfits in general with Mr. Glenn Danzig?
Mr. Glenn Danzig. It's a band that I've never gotten into. Like, I mean, I know of them. I've heard music from them and stuff. And I mean, it's easy to listen to, you know. It has a beat and you can dance to it. But, the lyrics I feel are a lot to be desired, and his voice, like, I don't know, I like a couple Danzig songs, but like, it just has such a dumb sound to it.
First of all, how dare you?
I know, right?
How could you say that about our Lord and Dark Savior, Glenn Danzig?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's simple punk rock,
Very simple.
especially for that late 70s sound.
Yeah.
And they've gone through many incarnations with and without Danzig.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a former frontman of the band was a member of the Proud Boys, which is always something to be proud of,
Sure.
especially for your repertoire.
Yes.
Dave Lombardo is playing drums with Misfits now every time that they do like one of their one-off shows now.
Yeah.
But most of the original lineup is back, and the fact that they're selling out stadiums when they never did that when they were an active band.
Yep.
And you know why that is, right?
Hot Topic.
Hot Topic and
Goth girls wanting to wear a Misfits t-shirt because they think they're going to be cool that way and be a goth that way.
yeah, more or less what I was getting at, but yes, the logo.
Yes.
The logo is bigger than the band.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, most people don't know any Misfits songs, and honestly, you're not really missing out on much.
You're not.
By not checking them out. But yeah, I mean, when most people talk about how like a band is just like an image,
Yeah.
the Misfits is the perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
And, you know, good on them as well, too. Like, they're raking in money from
Sure,
doing these
yeah.
one-off shows at stadiums and stuff. But, you know, they've never really been a band for me, and
Yeah.
their recordings, at least the Danzig era, has always sounded so crappy. And when they did have better production, they had the singer that was in the Proud Boys. So, you know, there's no reason to really go back to them.
Yeah. No.
But I felt this one appropriate because
Yeah.
in our next segment, we got some interesting stuff to talk about here.
Exactly. So up next, we have our Halloween segment of the week. And this week, we are getting into what we'll call metal horror movies. We're going to go a couple different ways with this, but basically any horror movies that, you know, are kind of about metal or have some kind of strong metal connection in them or something along those lines. And obviously we're not covering everything here because there's a lot out there, but we're going to cover some of the ones that we have seen and have experience with, and then we'll go over some kind of just brief mentions of like appearances and some movies made by horror musicians as well, horror movies made by metal musicians as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be very curious because there's so many different directions that this can go into, from
Exactly.
some of the more gruesome stuff to some of the more lighthearted stuff.
Yeah.
And we got some lighthearted stuff to talk about after this segment as well.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, let's see what you got at the top of the charts here.
Yeah, so top of the charts, and in no particular order, we have the movie Black Roses. So, if you're not familiar with this movie, it is about a community or town, whatever you want to say, who is invaded by a group of demons that are posing as a band, and they use their concerts to hypnotize the people who live there.
Totally in the fear of the PMRC. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty much why this movie was made.
Yep. The music is provided by Lizzie Borden. There's also a couple other bands that I'm not even aware of, but Tempest and Hallows Eve that I'm not really familiar with.
Sidebar, there is a new Lizzie Borden song out.
Oh, okay. We will have to check that out. Yeah, and also the band members of Black Roses are members of King Cobra, including Carmine Appice. So,
No, it's Vinny Appice and Carmine Appice.
yes. So sorry, my apologies.
Yes. Same, they are two brothers, but they say their last names so differently for some reason.
Yeah, but I love this movie. It is Like, I mean, it's cheesy 80s goodness, but like it's so enjoyable. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch this one again.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Of course, we're going to be doing the basic thing that everybody else does and be watching a lot more horror movies before Halloween
Yes.
strikes midnight. But we're not doing the 31 horror movies in 31 days that
No.
all of social media does. I mean, we watch stuff throughout the entire year, so,
Yeah.
we'll just put it on when we feel like it. But yeah, I think Black Roses definitely needs to be one of them.
Absolutely. And up next, we have a cult favorite, Deathgasm.
Oh yes, which recently just got announced that they are doing a not a fundraiser, a GoFundMe,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe, or whatever, or Kickstarter.
Kickstarter,
Kickstarter for the sequel.
Oh, okay.
Which Matt Heafy of Trivium has going to be doing the score
Yes,
for
yeah.
it. So
That'll be cool
I'm
to
very
see.
curious to see how they can even do a sequel after you've seen the end of Deathgasm. But
Yeah. So again, if you're not familiar with this movie, it's about two metalhead friends who summon an ancient evil to spike up their lives a little bit.
yes, and it's just full of all the metal references. Out there.
Yes.
No matter your style of metal, be it death, be it trivium, be it autopsy, be it cannibal core, it's got everything.
Yeah. If you've seen the meme with the metalhead looking guy sitting next to this girl, like very like kind of popular and blonde, and that is from this movie.
Yes, and not the best scene in the movie, but it is
No.
a very funny one when you first see it.
Absolutely. And it's just a funny movie overall.
Yeah, it's in New Zealand. It takes place, and again, I'm very curious how a sequel could be done with this. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Up next we have a another favorite of people, but Trick or Treat. So if you're not familiar with this one, after a metal star dies in a hotel fire, he comes back to life to kill anyone who has ever been a bully to his biggest fan. Of course, there's cameos by Ozzy and Gene Simmons in this. That's kind of how it's mostly known for, but it's an enjoyable movie. It's not my favorite of all of them, but I think a lot of people put so much on it because of Ozzy and Gene Simmons being in it, but it's like, whatever.
Yeah, it's very schlocky, but
Yeah.
I think that's the point. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not really meant to be taken seriously
Well,
or
that
anything
is
like
true.
that. And yeah, I don't like that how it's just known for Ozzy and Gene Simmons being in there.
Exactly.
But we got some more mentions of something like that after this particular part of the list.
Exactly. Up next, Rock and Roll Nightmare, which is another one that I absolutely love.
Featuring the greatest band of all time.
Yeah, of course, I was gonna say John Michael Thor is in this one from Thor. Who, yeah, if you see him then and now, you would never guess it's the same person.
And the fact that there's such a local scene to us now,
Yeah.
as so many members are from the local Minnesota metal scene
It's true.
in Thor now,
It's
which
true.
blows my mind.
Yeah. But again, if you're not familiar with this one, so an aspiring rock band goes out to a cabin, I believe it is, or a house, and then they're going to be rehearsing for the recording of their debut album, and well, things go a little awry.
Would you say it's a rock and roll nightmare?
It turns into a bit of a rock and roll nightmare. But I love this one. I love it. It's so cheesy, so
campy.
80s. It's perfect.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. Don't go into this expecting to be scared. It's campy, cheesy 80s fun. Especially if you know Thor,
Yeah.
you get extra giggles out of everything that happens.
For sure. Familiarize yourself with Thor first. And I would say for pretty much every movie on this list, almost, I would not go into it with a serious mindset.
No.
that is not the list that is you're looking for. Up next we have The Gate, which again, if you're unfamiliar, some kids are playing a metal album, backwards, of course, that opens up a portal to hell.
I have not seen this one,
Yeah,
but
so this is
again,
one you
it's
can
another
see.
PMRC retaliation movie.
Exactly. Another one, I know you haven't seen this one, but I've seen it. We Summon the Darkness.
Yes.
I love this movie. I don't think it has very good reviews, but I absolutely love it. So three best friends cross paths with some sadistic killers after traveling to a secluded country home for a party after a metal concert, and it's entertaining. I think it's really fun.
Is it like campy or is
Yeah,
it meant to be?
it's
Okay.
campy. It's campy.
Okay.
But it's, yeah. And at the beginning of it, like, when they meet, it's just so, like, a metal concert parking lot. Like, it's great. But I recommend seeing it. It's on Netflix. Up next, Studio 666.
Oh, yes.
So this is one that was written by, produced by, I think everything. Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters.
It was all of the Foo Fighters, actually.
Oh,
They wanted to do something during the pandemic, and they decided to write a horror movie.
Yes.
And there's actually a real album that comes from Studio 666 as well, where Dave Grohl plays everything. I originally thought Taylor Hawkins played the drums on that album. Apparently it was Dave Grohl.
Okay.
So that was not the last recordings like a lot of people thought it was.
Okay. And if you're unfamiliar with the movie, basically the Foo Fighters play a band, not themselves, but a band that's going to record an album.
No, they play themselves.
Did they play the Foo Fighters?
Yeah.
I thought they had a different band name in it.
Well, they turn into a different band.
Oh, okay. And through, again, the power of playing a recording, some demons come about, we'll say.
Yes, they essentially become the band that the recording is from,
Okay,
or
that was it.
at least Dave Grohl does, and then shenanigans happen.
Shenanigans happen.
It's a comedy horror. Carrie
is.
King is a roadie.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fun watch.
It's a romp.
It's a romp.
Up next, we have death metal, which we saw not too long ago.
Yeah, we just saw it like a couple months ago.
Yeah, so following a disastrous tour, this band hires a legendary producer to record their final album. They go out to his place to record it, and again, through the magic of, playing this other recording that they find, it's...
Well, actually, it's sheet music.
Well, sheet music, that was it. Still, though, through the power of somebody else's music, things happen.
This movie is so god-awful, but I enjoyed every single second of it.
Yeah, it was good.
And it's like one Incantation of all bands like does the opening theme, and you see them play a whole song,
Yes.
and you never actually hear the band play one single note.
No.
You have no idea what style of music they are, and they make jokes about like, oh, I thought we were like alternative gothic metal. No, I thought we were like atmospheric grindcore, and like it just goes into it's so campy, so terrible, so late 2010s, early 2020s horror, and I enjoyed every single second of it.
Absolutely. And again, it's just one of those movies where if you're a metalhead, you pick up on so many jokes.
Yes.
Up next, a favorite of mine, Slumber Party Massacre 2.
With one of the greatest villains of all time.
Yeah, so not quite metal, but
it's
metal
close
adjacent. So it's a rockabilly driller killer who comes to, kind of come after some slumber party teenagers.
Look, if you're killing people with your guitar, that's metal.
It is.
Again, another god-awful movie.
Yes.
It is terrible, but it's so enjoyable to watch.
Yes, exactly. Up next, so this is another one you haven't seen, and it's not necessarily horror, it's more kind of thriller-ish.
Close enough.
But Turbulence 3 Heavy Metal. So there's a metal star who is going to be doing their final show aboard a jumbo jet. And they are kidnapped and replaced by a Satanist who plans to hijack the plane and crash it into a church.
That's as metal as it gets. And
Yeah. But it's not really horror. It's definitely more thriller and dealing with the hijacking and stuff like that. It's not what you think it would be, but still, just because of how stupid it is, it's so worth a watch.
do you need to watch Turbulence 1 and 2 to get 3?
I've never seen them in my life.
Okay.
From what I know, they're not having anything to do with this. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Up next, so this is more of a serious one, Green Room.
Yeah.
And again, not quite metal, but metal adjacent. So
They do a cover of the Dead Kennedys or Napalm Death, so it kind of counts. Nazi Punk's F Off.
Yes. So this is about a punk man that goes to do a show, and they end up getting trapped in a room in a venue by a bunch of skinheads.
Led by Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yes. He is amazing in this, by the way. But yeah, this is, I mean, it has kind of the funny quips to it as well, but it's definitely a more serious toned movie. There's a lot of like discussion points that come out of this movie as well, I would say.
And I'm so glad I talked you into seeing this
Yeah.
as well. And unfortunately, the star of the movie was killed Final Destination style when he was at his home getting mail by his front gate, and his car decided to roll back down at him
Yeah.
and crushed him.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't remember his name right
Yes,
now,
but he was in a lot of stuff before
Yeah,
he
he
left.
was
But
amazing in
yeah,
it.
he's the star of Green Room, and I think it was one of the last movies that he did as well
I
too.
think so, yeah.
But yeah, I could not recommend Green Room more.
Another movie, not exactly horror, not exactly metal, but adjacent, The Crow, which is
I
one
think
of...
the soundtrack has metal on it. It counts.
Well, that's true, but the movie itself is what we're talking about now, and like it's one of my favorite movies. It's in my top 3. Like, if you're not familiar with it, I mean, it's based on a comic book, but it's about a rock and roll musician who him and his fiance are murdered, and he comes back to life through the power of the crow, and stuff goes down from there.
Yeah, that's why he is Goth RoboCop, because they both get killed
Yeah.
under nefarious reasons. They both
Okay.
come back to life from nefarious reasons, and then they go back and kill the ones that.
But he's not a
that wronged
robot.
them. It's all set dressing. One is a cop, one is the undead.
Agree to disagree. Anyways.
Oh, we'll be discussing this more.
I'm sure. So the last one as part of this list, before we get into some other stuff, is I know you haven't seen this, but Shock 'em Dead.
I have not seen this
So
one.
this is early 90s, but it feels very 80s. There's a guy who makes a deal with the devil or with a demon to become like the biggest rock star. And the person that he works with, like, it's kind of like she works with like dark magic and stuff like that, is Tracy Lords. So it's as good as it sounds. I mean,
Well, if Tracy Lords is in it, then
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to do some investigating, not only of her previous work, but also of this movie as well.
yes, of course.
I'm gonna bring it up because I feel like someone is gonna bring it up. We were discussing whether this one should be even talked about or not because you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Queen of the Damned will be
Yeah.
the last one we talk about here.
Yeah.
Former, now deceased R&B singer Aaliyah is basically a lead vampire who finds this band that wants to become the biggest rock band ever.
Yeah.
And she can promise them immortal fame.
Yeah.
And she turns them into vampires. And they basically become like the world's biggest new metal band. Jonathan Davis is doing the vocals in it. He's not in the movie, but you hear his
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
And just a lot of shenanigans happen from there as well. I don't remember everything that happened, but I know people of my age love this movie
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is nothing but new metal songs, which has never been my bag, baby. But it's one of those late '90s vampire movies that it's worth watching once to see if you get a kick out of it or not.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly amazed you've never seen this one.
I know. It's one that I've always like been like I should watch it at some point, but I've never just never have seen it on any of the streaming services I've been on or anything, so it's just never crossed my path to watch. But I definitely do need to watch it at some point. So now we're gonna shift a little bit into really kind of movies that a lot of people tend to include on a list like this a lot of times for various reasons that we'll get into, but we didn't quite put it on the main list. So first up is movies that were made by metal musicians. So obviously Rob Zombie has a lot. House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, Three from Hell, all partnering together. I love all those movies. I know you don't like House of a Thousand, but you like the other two?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm weird like that. I mean, so many people love House of a Thousand Corpses, and I
Yeah.
think The Devil's Rejects is one of the best horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
And I thought Three from Hell is somewhere in between.
Yeah, I get you. And then, oh yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Then of course he had Halloween and Halloween 2. I love Halloween. Halloween 2 I'm fine with. I don't think it's great, but it's not as bad as some people make it out to be either, so.
I can't comment on something I haven't seen, so.
Yeah, did you see the first Halloween?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people hate that the backstory of Michael Myers is in there.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I like both perspectives. I love the original Halloween, but I also love this take. I love kind of seeing that more in-depth view of him and stuff. And yeah, like, I don't know, some people like don't like it because it kind of humanizes him more, but
Yes.
like he was a human. I mean, in the first movie, you saw him as a child doing these things, and to be honest, he looked even more innocent in the first one.
Yes.
In this one, I mean, he was a messed up little kid.
Yeah, he wasn't in a kiss shirt killing someone in the
No,
original movie.
He wasn't like slaughtering little small animals prior to the Halloween night in the first movie.
And, Bill Moseley,
Oh, I love Bill Moseley.
but of course he had some movies that we're not really big on as well. Rob Zombie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about Bill Moseley.
No.
I'm like, wait, what?
No. I mean Rob Zombie.
Yeah, so he had Lords of Salem. He also had 31.
Which I think is one of the most atrocious horror movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I don't even remember it now. I blanked it out from my mind completely.
Although the voice of Tommy Pickles is the lead girl in 31.
That's great.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. And then finally, obviously, he came out with the Monsters last year, was it?
Yes.
And we haven't seen that, though.
Apparently, it's supposed to be a nod to the original TV show. It's not meant to be like a Rob Zombie version of anything. It's supposed to just be like a newer version of the sitcom.
Yeah.
So maybe it's worth a shot. Maybe it sucks. I don't know.
Yeah. Outside of Rob Zombie, of course, Dee Snider had Strangeland.
And?
I enjoyed the movie. The movie.
Well, I meant that he had a sequel along with that, too.
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
he?
I've never seen it. I haven't seen it. Was it just Strangeland 2 or I can't remember.
I forgot what the subtitle is, or the subtitle is, but I've seen both of them and they're really messed up movies, but I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, totally. And then, of course, going back to earlier, Mr. Glenn Danzig.
Yes.
He's had a few, or a couple so far, but I know he's working on other ones.
Or is he after the abysmal...
Well, as of like last year, I saw an article like later last year where he was working on a few different movies, so...
Okay.
I don't think he's thrown back by his movies not being successes. Otherwise, he would have stopped after the first one. But
Which, of course, is...
Veronica. And then, I haven't seen that one yet, but we need to see that. But the second one, we did see in the theater alone.
Yes. Like, it's funny because, like, most movie theaters, like, at least now, like, our local movie theater, you can rent out the entire theater for $100.
Yeah.
Or you could go see a Danzig movie and you'll be the only ones in there.
Exactly.
And that, of course, is...
Death Rider in the House of Vampires.
Death Rider rides alone.
So funny story, after we saw that movie, like, I was trying to find that song on YouTube or anywhere because it's just, it's hilarious.
Yes.
And we couldn't find it anywhere, so I actually emailed the company that, like, made the movie. I'm like, I really love the soundtrack. Like, is that going to be available somewhere? And yeah, nope, nothing.
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 I think we might have been the only two people in Minnesota to go see that movie.
Maybe the country. Who knows? Because it was only in, like, a few theaters.
And it's available to stream nowhere.
That we're
It's
aware of
available to
anyways.
purchase nowhere.
Yeah, that we've seen anyways.
Yeah, you have to get like a bootleg copy of the movie somewhere, somehow. Like someone had to have recorded it at a movie theater for you to be able to see it.
And of course, the amazing Devon Sawa was in this movie as well.
Oh, there's so many cameos in here.
Yeah. Oh, and Danny Trejo.
Eli Roth.
Yes.
A lot of boobies as well.
Yeah, it starts with...
It starts with like 5 minutes of boobies bouncing on a horse.
Yeah. If you ever get the chance to see it, just see it.
Or get a hold of Glenn Danzig on social media.
Yes.
Go to his pages and demand that Death Rider becomes available on streaming.
Exactly.
You need to see it for yourself.
Exactly. So, moving on from that, now we have just a small list of appearances of metal artists in movies. And there's a ton more than this, but these are just some of the ones that I'd heard of at least. So Dark Floors, Lordy, obviously they play the demons in that one. Have you seen that one?
I haven't.
Okay, I have seen it. I remember enjoying it. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but Of course, Hellraiser 3 we talked about on previous episode, but Armored Saint is in there playing a show.
And Slaughtered.
Saw the final chapter had Chester Bennington, which, again, we're not Saw fans necessarily, but,
And I believe that was his last film appearance. I think he did a couple other things, like very small time, but I think that was the last time he was in a movie.
Yeah. Alice Cooper's done a number of roles, but a couple of them was Suck and Monster Day. Not really a horror movie, but in Dungeon Master, Wasp was in there and they played demons, so I think that kind of fits.
I think it counts.
In Pledge Night, Jolie Belladonna was in there. And finally, Cradle of Fear had Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth. What a name.
It's almost like they had something to do with the movie.
I know, right? And then outside of this, another movie that people tend to bring up with this type of list a lot, but I didn't really feel like it fits quite in like the metal horror movie list, is Lords of Chaos. Because I mean, basically it's a biography about mayhem, you know?
Yeah.
So I get it's about a metal band and all that stuff. It's also a reality. And going off of that, if we're going to include something like that, I would also include the documentary Paradise Lost, which is on HBO Max if you have it, or just Mac now, sorry. It is based around the West Memphis 3, which, if you're not familiar, back in 93, there was 3 teenage boys living in West Memphis who were accused of murders, basically because they listened to metal music.
And it's actually a trilogy
Yes.
of documentaries as well. And it's so great. At the end of the last one, you actually see them get out of prison.
Yes. Yeah, they were finally released from prison, I believe back in 2010, I think it was. But yeah, it's an amazing documentary. So.
Yeah, and it just, from the sociological aspect alone, and if you are a metalhead and just, like how people just get chastised for t-shirts that they wear. It was just a great documentary.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was a really great list that you compiled together.
Of
There's some stuff that I got to see, some one that you might check out at some point, and a bunch of other stuff. So what about you listening to this? What are your favorite metal-themed horror movies, or cameos from metal musicians, or musicians that have made horror movies, or anything adjacent to that?
Or any recommendations you have that we didn't have. I do have a growing list of movies I came across, like, in doing my research and stuff, of movies we haven't seen that we need to see. So if you have any recommendations, let us know.
All right, next up we got the TV stuff. I think we're going to start with wrestling because there's not really much to talk about.
Yeah, no, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Obviously, with Adam Copeland making his debut in AEW, he was on this week. But outside of that, not a whole lot.
Well, au contraire, mon frere.
Yeah.
Remember, as something we'll be talking about in the next segment, as we were walking out, we got in the car, and I noticed that there are new AEW Tag Team Champions.
Oh, yes. We didn't watch that, but we heard about it.
Yes, FTR finally dropped the AEW titles to Ricky Starks and Big Bill.
Woohoo! Because they're so deserving, and there's no other tag teams out there that should possibly have them.
And apparently there's no rating system anymore,
No.
like we've talked about many a times on here.
Yeah, wins and losses mean nothing. We're
It's
becoming
WWE.
WWE.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. We did watch The Simpsons, though.
Yeah, so what did you think of the 35th season premiere?
I'm trying to remember what happened in it. Remind me.
Homer becomes a crossing guard.
Oh, yes.
And it's basically a huge allegory for defunding the police, but they do it through the gaze of how all the crossing guards get way too much money and way too much power.
Yes. It was comical. It was comical. Like, I enjoyed Homer in this one, kind of seeing a different side to him and stuff, but it was fine. It was fine.
I think the last few seasons have been really good.
Yeah.
And I especially mean that compared to the last few seasons before that, because it was becoming unwatchable.
Yeah, it was bad for a while.
And then all of a sudden they got a fire underneath them, and they started making some really good episodes and some really good seasons where I laugh all the way through.
Yeah.
And this was one of them.
Absolutely. And we also watched the new Bob's Burgers. What do you think of it?
I thought it was really good. I can't believe they have 14 seasons now.
I know.
And I'm really happy about that as well, too. It was great to see how all that happened. Of course, it's one of those silly storytelling episodes.
Yes.
The whole idea is that the kids don't want to do chores.
Yes.
So Bob and Linda start telling this story about Pepperoni the horse, and then it becomes a huge allegory for the kids not wanting to do chores.
Yes.
And just the back and forth that goes on between that. It was just a really silly story, and I like Bob's Burgers for that. It's easy watching.
Yeah.
It tackles some things once in a while that can hit hard, but it's a fun watch.
Yeah. I love Bob's Burgers. Like you said, it's such an easy watching show, but it's always so consistent with like having at least a decent set of like humor and like storytelling and stuff. It doesn't fail really ever.
Unless it's a Gene episode.
Well, yeah, that fails for different reasons because Gene is just annoying. But yeah, their storytelling episodes are always kind of just sit back and like enjoy it. It's not going to be any heavy lifting or anything with those ones. But yeah, I love Bob's Burgers, and I am Tina.
Yeah, as much as you wish that you were Daria,
I am Tina.
You were Tina. We might have had the wrong week. It might start tonight, or it was last week and Hulu didn't have it. But we also enjoy The Great North, which is from the creators of Bob's Burgers. It feels like it's in the same universe.
Yeah.
I think it is. But instead of being on a East Coast city right by the beach, it's in Alaska.
Exactly.
And of course, it has Bill from The Last of Us as the dad.
Yes.
Which, once you realize that, it makes the show even funnier.
Oh, it's great.
But it might be starting tonight, or we missed an episode. I'm not sure. But regardless, if you enjoy Bob's Burgers, you should give The Great North a chance as
Absolutely.
well. A lot less singing if that's the reason you don't like Bob's Burgers.
Okay, up next we have a couple movies we watched this week. The first one we saw in theaters just yesterday, and that was The Exorcist Believer.
Yes, I have been seeing so many reviews crapping all over this movie for some reason. And there's various reasons why they are, but what was your thoughts on it?
I really, really liked it. Like, I love the original Exorcist, and that will probably always be my favorite as far as the Exorcist movies go, but I thought this one was really good. Like, it doesn't try to, like, be the first one. I mean, it's in the same world, because it has cameos from people from the first one, but it takes it into a little bit of a different spin. It's two girls in this case who are possessed, and it leads so much more into, like, I mean, yes, there's the religious aspect, because, I mean, it's a possession and stuff like that, but it leads it more into, like, a human aspect and almost kind of sociological, and just kind of the trust and the faith people have in each other instead. And I think that's such an interesting premise. And, you know, I don't know, it just really makes you think, I feel like.
And I think that's why a lot of people hate it. First of all, it makes you think.
Exactly.
2, it's woke.
Yeah.
It's woke.
Yep, there are people who hate that, and a lot of people just don't like to think when they go to movies, which I understand. Sometimes you want to shut your mind off with a movie, but, like, I love a good movie that can make you, like, think and make you discuss and make you pick apart the world around you.
And the fact that we got to see it in IMAX and there was barely anyone in there. I mean, we almost had the theater to ourselves, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
My take on it, I'm still kind of so-so on it.
Yeah.
There's parts I thoroughly enjoyed about it. Some parts I felt were really rushed, but I think that's a Blumhouse thing. They love to rush their movies.
That's true.
They love to, like, skip over things that would probably make it a lot deeper than it is. I guess it just happened so gradually, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
But there was only one picture of Pazuzu, which made me happy to see it. But I was also hoping there was going to be more Pazuzu in there.
Prior to the movie, he was sitting, before anybody else was in the theater, let me preface that by saying that, he was chanting Pazuzu.
Yeah, I wanted one of those little college flags, the little triangle things that says Pazuzu on there. I would have loved to have had that and, like, spin it around. But no, just one little picture in a book of Pazuzu. But it's better than nothing, which is what I was really expecting.
Right.
And with that said, I probably enjoy Exorcist 2 and 3 for that reason, because, you know, go Pazuzu.
Yes.
But, no, I thought there was some nice little callbacks to the original while still being able to tell its own story. Another reason that's a little tug-collery about it is it's made from the same people who did the Halloween sequels over the last few years.
Yeah.
Which, the original sequel, that's also called Halloween,
Yes.
I thought was great.
Yeah.
Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends are terrible. They are just awful. Evil dies tonight! Evil dies tonight!
So I like the original, and the second one I was fine with you, but the last one was, no. They tried to take it a direction they should not have taken it.
And that was the original plan all along, which I don't understand.
Nope.
And that has me scared. Like, are they going to do the same thing with The Exorcist, too? Are they going to be going, like, in some weird direction it doesn't need to go into?
Right.
Or is there going to be any sequels? Or maybe they'll actually bring Pazuzu a part of all of this? I don't know.
Find out.
Well, according to the box office draw, we may never find out.
Yeah,
But, what was that other movie that we saw?
Just earlier today, we watched Totally Killer on Prime.
Yes, we've been seeing this going everywhere. I've seen viral stuff about it all over social media.
Yeah.
Podcasts I listen to even talked about Totally Killer.
Yeah, and I wanted to see it, number one, because I heard about it, and it seemed like something up my alley, but...
And second, you were going to watch it without me until I woke up.
Well, I didn't know you had heard of it or anything. But anyways, Kiernan, who was Sabrina in the Chilling Tales of Sabrina, is in it, and I love her. She's so good.
Oh, there's a lot of people that are in this movie as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. What do you think of it?
The weightlifter from Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things though.
I think the mom from Modern Family was the mom.
Oh, was she? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never watched Modern Family.
I haven't either, but
yeah.
I recognize the name. But
Yeah.
it was just funny seeing him. Any movie I ever see him in is just funny.
It's gonna be a romp.
Yes. Basically, look at this as like it's like a teenage 80s teenage comedy mixed with Back to the Future mixed with a serial killer.
Yeah.
It's as weird as it sounds, but it all makes sense.
It does.
Although they do make a joke about how time travel movies make no sense. So, that they shot themselves in the arm with that. So if you do find anything that doesn't line up, they already called it out. But no, I found it to be a nice little romp. I thought it was going to be a romp going into it, and it was a romp. It was funny. It makes you think about stuff, just like looking back from like 1987 to seeing how we've progressed or degressed since 2023. There's a lot of things to think about this one, and it's under the gaze of just like something that's going to go viral, and it already has. But, there's a deeper layer, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, it's that amazing mix of 80s kind of cheesy comedy with horror. I mean, in a way, horror, but not really horror.
Serial killer.
Yeah.
That makes it horror.
Yeah. But there's all the jokes along the way, and it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun movie.
Yeah. I can't imagine you would actually be scared during this.
No.
Maybe if you're of a certain age, like a youngin', and you might be scared of something like this, like if
Sure.
it's like your first horror movie you ever see.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just fun to watch.
It is.
I don't know what the hype is behind all this. I don't know what the consensus is, but we enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And a nice late 80s soundtrack as well.
Exactly. So up next we got some gaming content. So on your end, I know you were playing Cyberpunk still.
Yes, I just pretty much finished up with the DLC for Phantom Liberty.
Yeah.
Called Phantom Liberty. There's one mission left, but it's also the end of the game if I decide to finish that mission. So I'm doing all the other stuff from the base game first before I decide to do that. But again, I can't say it enough. Like, from the game constantly crashing and having so many bugs and everything, it runs so smooth now. It's so much more fun to play. There's still some jankiness, as you've seen, like bodies going through doors after you kill them. And,
Yeah.
I noticed some people like walking through the sidewalk and other things like that. But, it's nothing that you don't see in a Bethesda game. And some of those bugs and jankiness is just funny to me, and it makes the game a little more surprising, and it's fun to me.
Yeah.
Would you ever play this if this came to a handheld that you can play on?
Maybe.
Maybe.
There are definitely some fun aspects to it. It looks really good, and there's a lot of like visually like scenes that kind of remind me of some games that I've played in the past, whether it be Saints Row or Grand Theft Auto and stuff. So it could be of interest to me.
And a lot of naughty stuff as well.
Exactly.
But also want to mention coming up soon is Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man.
Which I am so looking forward to playing. Spider-Man!
Yes.
Yeah, and of course that goes along with horror because horror legend Tony Todd is Venom. And I'm so excited to see what happens with that. And of course, going into the metal routes with Power Paladin, Craven the Hunter is another one of the villains on here.
Nice.
Hunted by the enemy tonight. I love Power Paladin. Also, Alan Wake 2. Apparently, they really switched up the gameplay on here. Part of it feels like a detective thriller, and the other part is a survival horror, kind of like Resident Evil 2. In a sense. So it's kind of like two games at once going on. And I'm very curious about that. And of course, Alan Wake and Control and the whole studio that makes those are the reason that I even know of the band Poets of the Fall, which is an underrated band from Finland.
Definitely.
Or at least over here, very underrated.
Yes.
Everywhere else, people know who they are, as they
Right.
should.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the next couple games I'm looking forward to. And, of course, in November, the first-person shooter of RoboCop, which I had to bring back up again. Apparently they did Terminator a couple years ago, which I've never played, and I didn't realize there was a Terminator game a couple years ago, but they decided to tackle RoboCop this time, and I might need to check that out too.
Exactly. So on my end, of course, I've been playing my dating games on my phone. So Love is Blind. So last we talked about, we had said yes to our partner, and met them, and now we shuffled off to Mexico for our like kind of trial period together. And during our time there, well, we're still there, but like we met with all the other couples, and we had dinner and stuff, and we also have the option of being tempted by one of the other men.
Ooh.
So depending on what route you take, you could be going somewhere else instead. On Love Island, we played a game, I think it was Truth or Dare, and ended up having confirmation that the guy that we're into was into us as well. And then finally on to Hot to Handle, or not Hot to Handle. Yeah, Hot to Handle, I think that's the other one. Is that the one I played?
I think so.
Yeah. I ask you.
Sounds right. Well, you've brought up the name before.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. So, I gotten kicked off of the island.
What did you do?
So there's it's basically like an Alexa, I can't say it too loud or she'll do something, who kind of tells you who's been good, who's been bad, who's broken rules and stuff like that. And me and one other person got kicked off because we haven't been following the rules like we should have. And, but then like, once we got like away from the crowd, they're like, well, you can have a chance. We're seeing remorse in you and you can have a chance to get back on the island. So I went to a retreat to like show my growth and stuff. And then I got back on the island.
Naughty, naughty.
Exactly.
Even though it's not a game, we did talk about it yesterday in the car after seeing Exorcist.
Yeah.
And if they do make a game, oh boy, I think that would be adults only. What do you think about this new dating show, Naked Attraction, and what I described?
I have to see it before I can fully judge it, but sounds pretty hilarious. And that's really all I can say right now.
You might need to watch an episode or two, and then we can talk about it in the TV segment for next week.
Exactly. But to wrap up the gaming section, we heard that unfortunately Batman Arkham Trilogy has been delayed for the Switch.
Yes, but thankfully it's only to December 1st. Yes, and I've played the games on the 360 originally for the first two games, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and then Arkham Knights I played on the PlayStation 4. In fact, that was how I got my PlayStation 4, was the Batman Arkham Knight bundle. I wish it would have been the special edition that had like Batman stuff on there, but it came with the game, so I can't complain too much.
Exactly.
But I love all three of these games, and the very underrated Arkham Origins, which is never usually included when talking about the trilogy, even though it is 4 games. You've always loved watching me play these games, and you've wanted to play it yourself, and you got so excited when you found out that it was going to be coming on the Switch. Apparently, due to like technical issues and stuff like that, it's being delayed to December, which a lot of pessimists out there are thinking that it's not going to run right, and there's going to be a lot of problems with it. I'm trying to go in optimistic that they're just catching some last-minute bugs before it's released to its full potential.
I hope so.
When it comes out in December, are you picking it up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to have so much fun with them, and make sure to play them in order.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
It's just, each one keeps getting grander and grander, and it's kind of like Resident Evil in that sense, too, because, like, a Resident Evil 2 is mainly inside the police station, where, like, Arkham Asylum is all in Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
And then a little space of the city, just like Raccoon City and Resident Evil 3, and then more full-blown, like Resident Evil 4, and then you get all of Gotham City in Arkham Knight. So I hope you will get to play those, but don't do what I did. Don't go after all the Riddler trophies, because that will just make you go insane.
Yeah.
And I say that because you did help me get all of the Riddler trophies in Arkham Knight.
Yes.
Which I wanted to do just to get the 100% ending.
Yeah.
Which you can just look it up on YouTube if you want to know what the ending is. It is not worth doing if you ever play it. Don't do all of the Riddler trophies.
So finally, we have some musical content to chat about, and I'm going to leave it up mainly to you because I haven't really listened to anything new this week.
How dare you not prepare for this segment?
I know. But you have done some interviews this week.
I have done some interviews this week. I was supposed to have 7 And so
Yeah.
far 4 have happened.
Yes.
One of them might not happen. One's happening tomorrow if everything goes right, and one might be happening this coming Wednesday.
Yeah.
But first off, I talked to the Swedish hard rock band Bonafide. Talked about their brand new album, Are You Listening? Then I went into the late 90s, early 2000s heavy rock radio sound of Fake Figures and their former drummer, now singer of the band, Steve Ludwig. And wouldn't you know it, when we were talking about drums on here, he was actually talking about how he played Ludwig drums.
Nice.
I don't know if he's connected to the company or not, or if that's just a coincidence, but hey. Then I talked to my good friend Joshua Coram of Head with Wings. I have an attachment to this band because of my sideshow that I've done. Might keep going with it. I don't really know. The show Something Gives. That is one of their songs off their debut album, and I thought it was very appropriate for the show. And we talked about their brand new album, Without Intervention, which is going to be coming out on October 20th, which features the hardest working man in all of rock and metal, Vikram Shankar, doing orchestration, keyboards, producing, mixing, and mastering. He does not stop working.
No.
And everything that he does is magic.
Yes.
And then finally, I talked to Vivian Lalu to talk about his solo band Lalu and the brand new album, The Fish That Wanted to Be King. And it's funny because, like, when we've talked about this, like, he started off doing more extreme metal and has become more prog rock.
Yeah.
And now he wants to do extreme metal again in the vein of, like, Strappy Young Lad and Emperor and stuff. So I'd be very curious to see what happens with that. But that interview might be very near and dear to me because it turns out we're very similar.
Yes.
Despite the accents, we were both loners for so much of our lives. We both had the same tastes in music and gaming and all of this stuff. So it's a very fun interview. It gets a little heavy at points, but I think it's a great interview, and I hope people check that one out.
Absolutely.
But there is actually a little bit that you've done. You kind of took my advice that I did last week, and you started working on some of your best of
A
for the year.
little bit. So far I just kind of revisited my top list from the first half of the year. But over the next week or two, I really want to kind of hone in and get my list going for the end of the year. At least get a bigger list and maybe not narrow it down quite yet. But yeah.
Have you thought about how many albums that you want to include yet?
I mean, typically in the past I've done right around 30, so my guess is they'll probably be about the same, but we'll see.
Not everyone is as insane as me doing
No.
100 albums.
No.
And last year being 150.
Yeah.
Which 2022 was an anomaly. I'll keep saying that.
Yes.
But this year was incredibly great, and there's still
Yeah.
great albums that are coming out, both in October and November. If you put out an album in December, you're a jerk, because all the people like us not always getting stuff in December. So it's if you want us to promote us, you have to put out the album a little bit sooner. Mm-hmm. But I'm very excited to start working on that. I do have my top 100 right now, not including October and November, which I'll be adding soon. Mm-hmm. But I'm very curious to see what will come out on top, because right now I don't have a number one album.
Yeah.
And I think with that, that's a great note to end on. I want to thank you very much for tuning in and checking out episode 13 of the Heavy Debriefings podcast.
And next week for our Halloween content, we have our favorite Halloween albums, if you want to say, or albums that are enjoyable for Halloween. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many albums we're gonna do, but we'll make sure it's a good varied list. And of course, that we'll be doing a song off of each album that we talk about and putting that up in the Spotify playlist.
Exactly.
But just a recap from the beginning of the show, if you're struggling with mental health,
Yeah.
it's not just September you should talk about mental health. It's all year round, every day of the year. So do what you can, no matter what that is, to try to improve your mental health.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Make sure to follow us on all the socials under Heavy Debriefings with Facebook, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky right now.
Ooh.
There might be more to come depending on how things go, but yeah, that's what we got going on right now. Make sure to look forward to everything that's going on with Heavy Debriefings on YouTube with all the interviews and all that good stuff. So for the Metal Fairy, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya.